So I was going to do this preview episode on kind of where I think everybody will finish in the table, where I would be like, oh, York9 finishes 7th and Valour FC finishes 1st in the table. But instead, as I was doing the research for that type of episode, I decided that it was really hard to determine who finishes first and who finishes last in the spring season. It's really just a coin flip, and that's who you think will win the spring season in the Canadian Premier League. So instead, I'm going to give you this episode where I give you a rundown of all 7 clubs and why I think that club is going to win the Canadian Premier League spring season. So let's start off with the first team here, the Halifax Wanderers over on the East Coast. So the underdog Wanderers, and why do I think that they'll win the spring season? And that's because, well, they're the underdogs out of all 7 clubs in the Canadian Premier League. I feel like a lot of people kind of, have them as the underdog. A lot of people are thinking just because based on other names signed on the other clubs that maybe the Wanderers aren't going to finish that high, but I think that could help them and be to their advantage, and that a lot of clubs maybe might just overlook them right off the beginning. And it's only 10 matches in the spring season. So when I did the rundown of the numbers, I really think if you can get 6 wins at least out of those 10 matches, you should be able to win the spring season. And 5 of those 10 matches are going to be at home at Wanderers ground, which sounds like they're going to be sold out every single one of those home games, which means the crowd will be wild and amazing for them over at Wanderers ground. And therefore, I think that they should be able to win those 5 matches. And then all they got to do is win 1 match in a row. That's it. 6 matches. They got to win 6 out of those 10 matches, and you're the spring champ. And I think they can do that. I mean, they got one of the best head coaches in the league, really, in Stephen Hart. And on top of that, they got one of the best and most experienced goalkeepers in Williams. And then they got some great underrated players like Sukanda and Gutierrez. And of course, one of my favorite strikers in the league in Pereira. And you put all that together, you mix it together in like a nice little soup, and that soup turns out to be magic, because that's what they're going to produce in the spring season is magic. Halifax Wanderers, I think with those characteristics, can win the spring season in 2019. York9 is next, and they're going to win because that group is assembled out of this world, just like their supporters group. And with that team there, they got a bunch of good players in solid positions. They're the defenders, they're back 4. I mean, there's some really good talents back there, like Gasparotto, Thompson, even Springer there. So they're really solid in the middle. And then on top of that, the midfielders are going to be really good. And I think Marafushi, one of their international signings this past offseason, will be one of the true talents coming out of the 2019 season for York9 and Jimmy Brennan's squad. And of course, on top of that, their forwards. I mean, they got Cox, they got Porter, and of course Ryan Telfer. So I mean, this team should be able to gel well enough. They got enough really good young talent there too, and I really think that they could pull out a big win. The big troubling part maybe because they're on the road, or at least not on the road. I mean, they are going to be on the road until like late May, but they're going to have a long stretch of home matches toward the back half of the 10-match spring season, which should help them, propel them at the very end to jump up in the first place and maybe catch whoever is in first place. Maybe it's the Wanderers, maybe it's the next team on the list. But that's why I think York9 will win, is because Jimmy Brennan assembled a really good, underrated, but young and talented with high potential York9 team. From York region, we move over to Hamilton with Forge FC. And the reason why I think Forge FC can win this year's league title is really they're just Sigma FC all grown up. That's pretty much what Forge FC is. I mean, a lot of pieces, yes, are from the Sigma FC system, as well as their manager and coach Bobby Smirnotis. But I think with him, I think he's good at developing the young talent, which, Forge FC has quite a lot of good young talent there, and they'll definitely develop in his system. But also on top of that, look at the attacking pieces they have. They got Welshman, who a lot of people favor as a guy who could possibly win the Golden Boot this year. Kristenenko, who I think is an underrated dark horse for someone who could win a Golden Boot in the future, just because of his blazing speed, and he's a great winger in the league. And of course, Kyle Becker, who, if you didn't catch it last week, I dropped my midfielders episode and he topped that list, and I think he's going to be one of the top players in the Canadian Premier League. And just that alone, and only having a 10-match span, it's going to be kind of a sprint more than a marathon in the spring season. And I think Forge FC should be able to start winning some matches. And it's all going to start this coming Saturday at the inaugural match when they host York9. So they got to take advantage of that and continue to win games, especially at home. I think home field advantage plays a big part in whoever wins the championship in the spring season. And I think that could favor Forge FC. And that's why I think Forge FC finishes first in the spring season. Next, we're going to go to the Prairies with the Winnipeg-based club Valour FC. And with Valour FC, I really think they're actually one of the best built clubs in the Canadian Premier League, at least coming into the start of the season, that is. I mean, they got youth on their team, they got some good veterans on their team, and on top of that, I think they really built well from the net out. I mean, they got good goalkeepers, they're a good goalkeeping tandem. in Farrago and in Jansen's. And I think they got one of the strongest, if not the strongest, defensive cores in the Premier League or in the Canadian Premier League. And of course, their midfielders is actually really loaded with some really good young talented players, as well as a good veteran in Josep Golubar. Plus they got, the Dillons, Dylan Carrero and Dylan Sacramento, who are going to play big parts and roles in this club's success. And of course, their forwards group with Ali Musi, and then of course on top of that, Stephen Hoyle, who I think will be a big part of their success as well, and also in the Golden Boot race in 2019. So I think with all that added together, it looks like they're going to have a possession-based type game, which I think will favor them. I think they'll be able to beat teams, whether it's in a high-scoring match 4-3 or in a low-scoring 1-0 defeat. I think they'll be able to smuggle teams out that way, and I think they're really well built, really in every single category here for Valour FC, and that's why they're one of my favorites to win the spring season and even the fall season, which we'll touch on that in July. But for now, I think that they have a really good shot here at winning, get 6 or more wins in the spring season, and win the spring season in the Canadian Premier League. FC Edmonton is next, and if you're an FC Edmonton fan or anybody in general, don't call it a comeback, because it's not a comeback. They've always been there, but now they're here for sure 100% in the Canadian Premier League, and that's super exciting because they're the only club with history, and that's kind of cool to have in a new league like this. But on top of that, I think FC Edmonton and Jeff Poulos has built a really good, fast, talented FC Edmonton squad with one of the best defenses in the Canadian Premier League, along with one of the best, I think, fullback / center backs in the Canadian Premier League in Ramon Soria. So I think that guy is going to be a big part of their success. They got 2 really good young goalkeepers, in Connor James and Dylan Powley. But I think they're not going to have to face a whole lot of shots, because with this team, I mean, they got some great midfielders led by midfield general James Marcelin. And on top of that, their forwards group with Amiobi and Edwini Bonsu is going to lead the pack. I think they're going to be scoring at a high velocity every week. Is that the right word to say? I guess, I don't know, 4-0 wins every week for FC Edmonton. So congratulations, you fans out there. You're going to have one of the best offenses, I think, in the Canadian Premier League based on their speed game. And that's why I think they're going to win the spring season. Now to Southern Alberta with the Calgary's club, Cavalry FC. And I think that club, the Cavs out there, are going to be super good this season. They got a lot of hype coming into the season, but I think that's, right for them. I mean, they got one of the best goalkeepers in Marco Carducci. I think on top of that, one of the best center backs in Mason Trafford, to be honest with you guys. And will probably win Defender of the Year. And on top of that, I think their midfielders, led by Nick Ledgerwood, possibly, and Sergio Camargo, I think they're going to be super talented there. And then Camargo is going to have a great season this year in their attack, especially for the Cavs. And on top of that, I mean, they got some really good forwards there. Malenga, who's a good veteran, but I think the real star on the team in 2019 could very well be the young Jordan Brown. And I think Brown's going to be fantastic. He's super young. He's come up through the academies over in West Ham Academy, most notably over in England and all that. So I mean, the guy's super young, super high ceiling for that guy, and under a manager like Tommy Wilden Jr., who's always great at developing young players, he's going to break out as a superstar this season. And all on top of that, I mean, they do already have instant chemistry because they're core players with the Foothills Football Club, who won the PDL last year. So, I mean, they're going to continue to roll into this year. I would be shocked if they don't win anything in 2019. So that's why I think the Cavs will finish first in the spring season. Because it's a sprint, I think they're going to be banging in, just like FC Edmonton, 4 or 5 goals a game. I mean, I cannot wait for El Clásicos because it's just going to be a big goal fest, 4-3, 5-4. Okay, maybe not 5-4, as much as that'd be kind of cool to see. But maybe 3-2 or 4-3 finishes should be exciting. But that's why I think Cavs FC could finish first in the spring season. We're going to finish up now over on the West Coast on the island with Pacific FC. And I mean, that club's got a bunch of high-profile names attached to that club. I mean, unfortunately, Marcel Dion will be injured and miss the entire spring season and maybe even the fall season, which sucks. But I think his replacement, Smith, will do just a fine enough job plugging that hole. I think their right back in Chung is going to be great in their back four. And I think the 2 center backs, and Strasiak, who's the German center back there, probably butchered that last name, and I apologize for that. And then McNaughton as well, the other center back, will be really strong for them. My question maybe is in depth, and that's why I think their spring season is their best chance of winning a title, is because maybe they don't have that full depth yet, as well as a lot of great young talent there that still need to get, they're still pretty green right now. They need to get those minutes, especially in the midfield, but I've never heard nothing but great things from Victor Blasco about what he's done in preseason this year. So with all that included, I think he'll be a big part in leading the attack. And of course, their front three of Fisk, Nakajima, Farhan, and Haber, I think will definitely lead the way for that team. So I think Pacific FC's offense will be their big part and big winning tactic for them over on the West Coast. And that's why I think Pacific FC could win the spring season. Well, guys, I hope those were some good reasons, and I hope you liked my spring season preview. Let me know down in the comment section below, who do you think will win the Canadian Premier League spring season? And on top of that, who do you think out of the 3 clubs will represent the Canadian Premier League this summer in the CONCACAF League? Is it going to be Forge FC? Is it going to be FC Edmonton? Or is it going to be Valour FC? And then, of course, if you like this video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button, that like button, shows me you like this video. And of course, if you want to see more content just like this about the Canadian Premier League, maybe you should consider hitting that red subscribe button. And if you hit that bell notification button right beside that, you actually get notified each and every week when I drop a brand new episode just like this one on my channel. And of course, you can also watch my content over at northernstarting11.com. I'll have a link for that down in the description below. You're going to want to click that link now. There's a bunch of great soccer related podcasts and vidcasts just like my channel here over at northernstarting11.com. It's for Canadians, by Canadians, some great soccer content there about Canadian soccer and about the Canadian Premier League. So if you're hungry for that just like myself, and you always want to keep up to date on all the latest news in the league, definitely check out that website below. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching.